We've done a fair few keys now, and I wanted to give my thoughts on what this first week makes me think the next few weeks are going to be like, both in terms of difficulty of the dungeon and also maybe what the meta is going to look like. A couple people have asked about that. I haven't really done enough keys to change my opinion on a lot of this stuff, but I'll tell you, this first week has been very insightful on a few things. And I've done a lot of keys you can see on the spreadsheet, but I have to say, I'm very surprised when I see this number here. Usually, the first week of a season, people aren't very active in Mythic Plus. A lot of the serious Mythic Plus runners historically have also been raiders. But then you take a look at this. This is the highest keys done so far this season. A lot of, I guess, Chinese groups or Asian groups in general, and they are absolutely killing it. I'm not exactly sure. I guess like most of the competitors would be raiders in top guilds right now, so they're focused entirely on raid. So that usually is a big deal. Like if you remember all the way back from BFA, this was a big talking point where the first few weeks people were like struggling to do big keys, and then after the race for world first came out, the dudes from those guilds came and literally just doubled whatever the highest key was. So if that actually happens again, I think this game's in trouble. Not the game, but the people who make it. This is a bit ridiculous. People are already doing 22s at effectively. I mean, I can't imagine these guys have any gear at all. Like, certainly, unless they've already cleared everything in the raid and they're doing split clears. No, this guy's 226 item level. This guy's done a 21 in time. Or 20, yeah, 21 necrotic wake. Obviously, one of the easier dungeons, regardless, but like, come on. 226 eye level. So he's probably not even wearing any new gear, right? I mean, maybe he has the gem or something. It doesn't even look like it. Looks like he's legitimately wearing no new gear. So without any upgrades at all, people are already doing 21s and 22s and stuff. Above 20 seems quite easy for a lot of people. So this had kind of transformed. My original thought on this was like, yeah, I think this season has changed the difficulty of five mans, and I'm not going to say it hasn't. My original thoughts was that like survival as a tank was just way easier than I expected it to be, and I still agree with that overall. It's because two out of the four anima powers are severe tank increases that I would take anyway. One of them 5% versatility, and then I think it's like 40% damage reduction for the first few seconds. I still think that should probably be more than just 1 or 2 seconds, whatever. I think it's like 2 or 3 seconds. Maybe should be added another second. I don't know. And then the other one is just a shield or leech or whatever one you want to take there is going to be huge. It could be the magic reduction one too. It's a really big deal. So on dungeons where you can get Sogadon, and I believe that's the other one is the ice one. When you can get those two people quickly, it's going to be very, very easy to survive relatively. But I was conflating a couple things there, thinking that it was that easy to survive, maybe either because of the affixes or maybe because they changed something. I no longer feel that way. I think keys are just really easy. Like they just didn't tune them right. And Tagore, I'll give him credit. He was the first person to say this to me, but I think probably a lot of people are coming to this conclusion is that they didn't tune the tank element of dungeons. It's called a K value, a damage effective coefficient, I believe is the way you put it. It's based on how much armor and reduction you have. So it should like kind of dynamically tune the content. So the more gear you get, the more difficult the content would get, not like the other way around. They only do this when seasons reset because obviously that would be ridiculous if they did it in the middle of a season. You're meant to feel like you're gearing up and getting better, especially as a tank. And then it's supposed to restart and it's supposed to all be like that again. But they also made the tank changes that they made in the middle of the season. All tanks get more stamina, 10% damage reduction, whatever it was. And then they changed the auto attack damage to be reduced by 10%. So there's a lot of reasons to think that that's the case. But the real question is it just all keys are easy? Because I think I'm starting to say yes. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, this guy's name sounds really familiar to me. I'm not a big fan of like just kind of randomly like checking out these types of things, but I'm sure that these people were doing keys that were way higher than that. So if they're only doing 21s right now, even though it's a tyrannical week, I'm sure they could do even higher in the future, obviously. And maybe if it was a more opportune fortified week, they would. But still, 21 is very high right now, and it makes me think that keys are just not like typically you would have expected the keys to be like I would say like probably like a 20, maybe would have felt like kind of like a 15 or a 16. But I don't really feel like that right now. I feel like right now, 17 is kind of more like a 19 from last season. But it's tyrannical, so I don't know. It's We're gonna have to wait and see for next week. I think I'll know better next week because I always had very little problem with tyrannical and a lot of problem with fortified. So if I had to say something right now, I would say like a 20 and a 17 are about like that's kind of where they're at. But we'll assume that that's gonna stay that way next week. Maybe it's gonna be a lot worse. There's trash packs where I do get slaughtered on, so it's kind of interesting that they started with tyrannical too, isn't it? Because you need both fortified and tyrannical to get Keystone Master. So opening with the week that is presumptively harder is a good way for people to get interested in doing it. Obviously, a lot of people just kind of skip tyrannical. That's certainly not going to be happening anymore. But I think they are trying to balance the tyrannical weeks more. Like you see a volcanic raging tyrannical week. That's got to be the easiest tyrannical week. I mean, I don't know what else there could be. What other combo could be easier than that? So, yeah, that's probably the easiest tyrannical week immediately. We'll see how the rest of it plays out. In terms of what classes and stuff I've seen, I've done a fair amount of keys with guildies and stuff, so it's not really the best, but I have pugged a lot too. And I have to say this, take it for what you will. I do not see a lot of success coming from the Shadow Priest slot. Okay, I've played with 3 Shadow Priests, and they've all been extremely under par, subpar, very bad, is what I'm trying to say. But I would not say that the entire spec is not valuable. Obviously, I can't be sure of if that's the spec or what, but I also have seen a lot of mages. Okay, obviously this class is in a weird state right now. A lot of people were playing fire. It was the best, like pretty much the best pick you could have last season. And it's no longer that it's obviously not, but they're buffing it again on Tuesday, seemingly purely single target focus. So I think fire is probably still fine in 5 mans, but I think you're going to see a lot less fire, and I'm not really sure if the other 2 specs are going to be as good as fire was last season. So I think mage drops significantly this season. You're going to see a lot less of them. It might even be the case for Hunter, but Hunter is also getting major buffs too. They were also in a bad state, and now they're getting major buffs. So we will see what occurs there. They'll probably be back on the top end. But the thing I've seen the most out of, and the thing I like the most right now is Windwalker. Windwalker, and actually I'm going to say Rogue too. Rogue and Windwalker have not let me down, and there's been a lot of rogues in the keys. You can check out the spreadsheet. Most, I think, like something like 60% of the keys have a rogue in them. A lot of them are a friend of mine's sign, but yeah, I've seen some really good success from Windwalker. And this guy specifically, he did a lot of talking in the group, so I wasn't a fan of him, but he played really well, and his damage was astounding. So Unholy seems good too. We had that Unholy DK in that group, but yeah, realistically, it's starting to feel like melee is where it's at right now. It's kind of not my preference, certainly, but it is starting to feel that way. And even on a tyrannical week, that doesn't really feel the best because there's a lot of bosses that you really need. I feel like range are just better on, right? Sanguine Depths playing in the background. That's one of them. So Ellie Shaman seems to be very hot right now. I feel like Balanced Druid is also not anywhere near as bad as people said it was going to be. I don't know. People were saying like that spec is like toast. I don't understand why or where that came from. Maybe as things continue to develop, somehow that will come into play. But from what I've seen, Balanced Druid has been solid. They still bring the same utility, so nothing different there. But anyway, yeah, just gonna say that like I think keys are definitely easier than they probably are intended to be. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's not abnormal. I don't think it's that like out of the realm of possibility that Blizzard did this on purpose. Now the 20 is actually giving rewards. They try to make 15s even easier. 15s, on both Tyrannical and Fortified are needed to upgrade your gear to max 2, which you now have to do on alts. It's no longer account wide. It was probably never meant to be. They just didn't have a way to separate it. Now that score is involved, it's not achievement based anymore. It's score based. And if you don't have the score, you can't do it. But yeah, getting 15s done should be very easy on alts. I'm going to go try to do some keys on my Paladin before the weekly reset. And it's like, I expect to be able to get, 14, 15 done, no problem on that character. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, especially about what emerging trends you might have seen. Maybe also what dungeons you think are going to be different. I think, like, honestly, the dungeon that's the most affected by the new affix is probably going to be Necrotic Wake, but it just doesn't really matter because it's such an easy dungeon. It seems like it's always going to be no matter what with those weapons. And then like Plaguefall is another one that I'm kind of curious about because they made a lot of changes there. So we'll see how that develops. But yeah, I just want to make a little video giving my thoughts on this, and I hope that you will contribute to the discussion down below. Otherwise, we'll see you guys soon for some more keys and hopefully some more gearing.